everybody, welcome to another edition of Blurb TV. I'm Andrew Garda, a writer at thunderandblurb.com and also the host of the Thunder and Blurb football show on blogtalkradio.com. If you're new to the show, welcome. If you followed me during the 2010 draft, thanks for coming back. As we're talking about the aftermath of the draft, and we've got rookies in camps and veterans returning, I thought we'd talk a little bit about a word that is on everybody's mind right about now, and that is the word bust. It's really early to use it, but people can't help themselves. I've already heard Sam Bradford called a stud and a surefire hit in camp, and I've heard Tim Tebow already called a bust. Listen, we're in rookie camps. We're actually just finishing rookie camps. We're going to get into the veteran OTAs. It's way too early to call a bust. It just is. Des Bryant hurt himself. Tim Tebow completed a bunch of passes. Sam Bradford took over the huddle. Take all of that with a giant grain of salt, like that big. Because frankly, right now, it doesn't mean anything. It won't mean anything until August, and it really won't mean anything until they hit the field in preseason games. Maybe not even until they hit the field permanently in the regular season games. And some of the guys, like Tebow, won't do it for a long time. So I wanted to talk about busts and talk a little bit about guys who are former picks, top picks for their teams, who are considered busts, who may be able to turn things around. So I'm going to give you my take on each of them. We'll start off with the biggest guy of them all, literally and figuratively, and that's JaMarcus Russell, who is such a big bust, he actually has the nickname Jabustus. Russell is a guy who has a phenomenal amount of talent, incredibly athletic, can throw the ball a mile and a half, and just doesn't seem to care. Just doesn't seem to have an interest, really. He's got his paycheck. He's done. Got Jason Campbell coming in, now traded from the Washington Redskins, and at first he was definitely going to be the starting quarterback, and now the Raiders have backed off and it's an open competition. Frankly, it's not an open competition. This is Jason Campbell's job to lose. Now the question is, can JaMarcus Russell, in a new situation, get fired up and really work hard to become the quarterback the Raiders thought that he would be when they took him with the first pick? That's a big question. He came into mini camps fired up. They're talking about how he's done everything they asked him to, and he's doing this and he's doing that. Right now is not the time to judge Russell. When we're going to judge Russell is going to be August, when it's hot and when he's worked. Is he going to be the leader that they need him to be? Because frankly, that's what was lacking last year. When Jeff Garcia was sitting there in camp as a backup, and he was like leading there, we're gonna change the mentality of this team. We're going to go out and fight, and we're going to do this and that. And JaMarcus Russell's just kind of hanging out, looking for the buffet. That's not a team leader. Quarterback needs to be a team leader on some level, at least in his own huddle. When your backup is more of a leader than you, problems. So Russell has an opportunity to really shine now, to make a statement, now that Jason Campbell is here, that I am going to take my job back. Myself, I don't think he has it in him. I really don't. I think this is a guy whose work ethic and drive is nil. And I hope he proves me wrong, but I think come August, we're going to probably see the end of the beginning of the end for JaMarcus Russell. The fact they haven't cut him now is monetary. I think that they're afraid to cut loose someone they've spent so much money on. But I wouldn't be surprised if he was gone at the end of August. I don't think he lasts the season, but he has an opportunity to turn things around and turn that bust label around. Second guy to talk about was the New York Jets, Vernon Gholston. Complete bust with a number 5 pick for the Jets just a few years ago. It felt like they had to take him because all the top talent was gone once Darren McFadden was gone, but I've never really loved that pick. I hoped he'd panned out, but he always struck me as a workout warrior. Well, he was more workout than warrior, unfortunately. The Jets are shifting him to the defensive line, and he did a little of that during the games last year, but he wasn't very effective. He was completely ineffective as a linebacker, and as much as Rex Ryan is a defensive mastermind, I'm not sure how much he's going to get out of Gholston. What I want to hear in terms of Vernon Gholston over the next few months is basically this. I want to hear about him in the film room all the time. I want to hear him talking to other defensive line people. How do I transition? What am I reading? I mean, his biggest problem isn't that he doesn't have athletic ability. He just doesn't really have instincts. He doesn't really have the size to be a defensive lineman, so he's going to have to make up by being right on that snap and knowing exactly what's going on instantaneously. He needs to be in the film room. He needs to be talking to vets. He needs to be living at that facility over the next few months. Otherwise, I don't think Vernon Gholston is going to be a Jet at the end of August. They may just finally cut him, say, bad money, gone, it's too bad, and it may be done. They don't have a lot of depth on the defensive line, but you know what? I think they could do with one less guy who's just taking up space. I hope Gholston, in a new position, can turn that bust label around, but I don't expect it to really happen. The third guy I want to talk about is on a new team, and to me, new team always is a great opportunity for a guy to turn it around, and that's Ted Ginn Jr., who went from the Miami Dolphins, where he was a huge bust as a number 9 pick. When he should have been a kick returner, he went in as a wide receiver, inconsistent hands, inconsistent focus when it comes to catching the ball. And he goes to San Francisco, who took him on just as a kick return specialist, and now are raving about how he's conducting himself in camp, that he's catching the ball, that he's focused, that he's really driven. You know, situations like Randy Moss from Oakland to New England, changing a team can sometimes revitalize a player, especially a guy who, you know, maybe had a little too much pressure on him before, like Ginn, who really was taken before he should have been in that draft. And we've seen it work before where, you know, Willis McGahee went from Buffalo to Baltimore and has had some success there, not a great deal of it. Of course, the aforementioned Randy Moss, and to an extent Travis Henry, who bounced from Buffalo to Tennessee, where he shone well for a while, and then moved on to Denver, where he shone well for a while. Unfortunately, in both Henry and McGahee's case, they kind of reverted back the type a little bit, but Moss is the way that Ginn wants to go. He wants to work hard, he wants to get to know Alex Smith and David Carr. He wants to show Mike Singletary that he wants to be there, that he can be more than a kick return specialist. And so far, it sounds like the Niners are excited about it. Now, again, it's May. It's way too early. But Ginn is a guy who may be a little unburdened from the expectations of being the number 9 pick for the Miami Dolphins, and now is a guy who's traded for, you know, a late-round draft pick, and who's really is there just to return kicks. If he does that well, then the wide receiver stuff is gravy. And maybe the pressure will leave him, and then maybe he can be more consistent with his hands, be more consistent running his routes, and, you know, take some of that great after, you know, catching the ball ability that he has in the kick return game and take that to the wide receiver position and maybe help. Now, Michael Crabtree, Josh Morgan are both pretty good wide receivers ahead of him, but there's room on this squad for Ginn to succeed if he takes advantage of this change to turn that bust label around and prove to everyone that maybe he wasn't worth the number 9 pick in the draft, but he certainly is worth a starting gig as a wide receiver for the San Francisco 49ers. So that's going to do it for tonight. I'll be back again soon with some more takes on the NFL and college. This is, of course, Blurb TV. I'm Andrew Garda. More articles, more podcasts, and more videos like this are at thunderblurb.com. Thank you very much for joining me, and I'll see you next time. For more shows, articles, and podcasts like this one, check out thunderingblurb.com.